Home Show Garden Pros, helping to turn your thumb green.
And of course, we mean that figuratively. Your thumb is going to be flesh tone no matter what, type of person you are. But green is means that you're good at gardening. So that's what we do here. Home Show Garden Pros. We teach gardening, we instruct gardening, we give great gardening advice, and we do it in a lot of different formats. So this is our live weekly show. So you may be watching Facebook Live or YouTube or something like that. And let me tell you, we're here to give gardening advice. Other ways to connect, our excellent website, homeshowgardenpros.com. On there, you'll see all our awesome pros, bunch of tip videos featuring our awesome pros, and also just a ton of information. We're all about just kind of giving you what you need to improve your gardening game. Also on Saturdays, we have the radio show. That's the flagship of the Home Show Garden Pros network. And that's on from 7 to 9 a.m. every single Saturday. And we get a rotation of experts from all over town. These are our garden pros. They're really the heart of the show there on Saturdays. And they're dishing out gardening information. So these are folks that really do a great job of celebrating gardening, teaching about gardening. And we got the city covered. So down southwest, you've got Enchanted Forest and Enchanted Gardens, just doing a great job down there. Beautiful places. In Katy, there's Nelson Nursery and Water Gardens. Katy is really one-stop shop for gardening. You go up 249, you get to Plants for All Seasons, a beautiful place, incredible selection of plants. One might even say for all seasons. That's right there on the feeder, just past 249. Really cool spot. Keep ticking around the clock, if you will, of Houston, and there's Nature's Way Resources Gardening Center. Really cool spot, just south of Conroe, north of the Woodlands. I love it. It's a great place. We all know their soils, but they have an awesome selection of plants as well. And then last but not least, in Kingwood, you have two incredible spots. You have Kingwood Garden Center, and you have Warren Southern Gardens. Beautiful places, great plants, a lot of know-how. That's our Garden Pro family, bunch of incredible folks. And on Saturdays on the radio show, which is on Sports Radio 610, we're really just jamming through content. We're talking a lot of gardening, and really our goal is to answer gardening questions. That's our goal here today. So we like to bring in, people from gardening clubs or nonprofits, or in this case, governmental agencies to dish out gardening information. And I got with me Boone Holladay. Hey, Boone.
Hey, Dany.
So Boone is a agent. He has a really long title, but basically in Fort Bend County, Boone is helping farmers and gardeners and all kinds of people really get better at the whole agriculture, horticulture thing. Is that a pretty good synopsis?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Tell us about what's going on. I know you guys have an event that I'm super excited about.
Yeah, we do have a couple events. What's going on here in Fort Bend is probably similar to what you're seeing in Houston. Is it rain on top of rain?
Yeah,
and so we're dealing with that and a lot of drainage issues, a lot of stormwater related insect and disease problems, and just misery of just everything being damp and wet all the time. So that's kind of where we're at as a snapshot of our life here. At least the temperatures have cooled down a little bit, so it's not just blazing hot outside.
Right.
But we are wearing our muck boots most places that we're going these days. Program that you might be alluding to there is usually in early February of the year we host a regional Southeast Texas regional vegetable growers conference here in Rosenberg, and typically have about 250 people at that here at the Fort Bend County Fairgrounds. But due to COVID-19 restrictions and the county utilizing the facilities for COVID testing and vaccination site, we got kicked out of there and had to put that program on the shelf, unfortunately. We've been doing that for 35 years, and this was the first year that we weren't able to host that. So we had a lot of questions, people calling in asking about it, and so we put together kind of a shortened version of that. We're calling it our summer session, and that's going to be on July 29th. It will be virtual. We're hosting that on Zoom platform. It's going to be in the morning, so three hours, 3 presentations, and we try to do a little theme with these types of events, and this one's going to be kind of centered around the discussion of going organic with
Nice.
vegetable
Okay.
production. And so it's looking at, well, it's looking at realities. And so it's the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats
Ooh.
of organic agriculture here in Southeast Texas. And so we're gonna look at the whole picture. One thing me and you have been talking about, where our agency is lucky enough to have built a new position, a new specialist position, and this individual will be focusing primarily on organic agriculture producers here in the state, and offering services to those people to help them be more successful in their business. So he'll be there, and we've got a topic on pest control and looking at conventional versus organic approaches to vegetable pest control. And then we have an individual that's coming in out of Florida and talking about new vegetable varieties,
Oh,
new
wow.
hybrids that really address the disease issues that we tend to deal with. I mean, that's kind of our number one threat for vegetables, is helping us to respond to disease. So if we're going organic, disease is one thing that we have to uh, respond to. And so looking at newer varieties that have what we call a disease package in that, it's a great tool on the shelf to help us, um, not have to depend on any type of pest control or disease
Right.
control product.
Pretty cool
So
stuff.
that's
And
that's that.
yeah, it sounds actually really, really exciting and extremely informative. I mean, I'm super interested in hearing kind of the outcome and the speakers. That's awesome stuff. And you said it's late July. Say the date and time again and how people can sign up.
Sure. Yeah, Thursday, July 29th from 8:30 to noon. And if you go to our county website, which is fortbend.agrilife.org, you'll see the event on there. Also, if you're on Facebook, you can go to our Fort Bend County Extension Facebook page, and there we have an event from there, and it'll guide you to the flyer and to the online registration site.
That is awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate that perspective. When it comes down to it, I'm all about an organic method, but to me, all I really mean is I want everybody to have healthy soils, right? If I can get people to invest in their soil, build their soil up, then when it comes to solving the problems, it gets a little more simple. And that's an overgeneralization, but that's kind of my favorite viewpoint is great soils, you get great roots if you don't have any problems there, and then production happens. But picking some of the better hybrids that both have a disease package and taste delicious, right? That combo is
Right.
when you get a real winner. So, and let's see,
Yep.
what's a
Indeed.
oh I tried a carbon tomato last year, so medium sized black tomato. I think it's a new hybrid, and it was so tasty, like super vibrant, super delicious. But it was one of those ones that can't get anything because of kind of excellent breeding methods. So that's awesome
Yeah.
stuff. It's always really interesting to get into the genetics.
Yeah, and that's been kind of the trend, is, the base, there's been so much backlash against the breeding programs because they bred specifically like roses. Roses were specifically bred for the floral quality
Right.
for years, and then so subsequently they became weak, and they lost fragrance, and they just kind of turned into trash. So you can't just have one approach when you're breeding. You got to look at everything. And so with fruits and vegetables, it's kind of flip flopped. As taste went away
Yep.
because they were breeding specifically for insect and disease resistance.
Mm,
And so now it's kind of taking, those newer traits, these varieties that we've got, and then back breeding some of the taste back into the new selections. So we're pretty excited
right.
about that.
And I definitely want to hear from an expert that's from somewhere like Florida or Louisiana, or South Texas, where it's like they have the humidity. I
Hmm.
don't give me a grower from Germany or Northern California, where it's like come on, the weather's so great there, it's cool. I need a
Hmm.
tomato that could stand up to this climate. So that's awesome. How exciting! What a good program, and I'm gonna try to get myself a free ticket and tune in for sure.
Cool.
I'll figure out a route. Okay, awesome, great, great. I was hoping you. Anyway, it's fine. So, Boone, this isn't your first time on the show, so you know what we do
Yeah.
is we answer gardening questions, and Boone is like wonderfully knowledgeable, but he often is dealing with people that are growing vegetables for sale, like actual farmer types, or even huge plots of lands for sale. But you guys do with a lot of home gardeners, and that's our kind of craft, our kind of thing. And so we're going to answer these
Mhm.
questions. You guys are welcome to put questions in the comments. Let's get those going. We love answering gardening questions. That's what we're here to do. And then
Yep.
when we get done with questions, I got a couple cool questions because Boone is into some stuff. He is into some things that you're going to be intrigued by. So here we go. These questions are from our website. The Ask a Pro button is there at homeshowgardenpros.com. Mark, we should get like a little image that's like it looks like, and so anyway, people don't have to visualize what the button is. They may think it's red. It's not. It's orange. So see, there's a surprise already. Okay, going on. Here we go. Question number 1. All right, this is from Jason. Oh, Jason. All right, following Hurricane Harvey and recovery on our flooded home in Bel Air, we're finally ready to redo the grass. Highly compacted clay soils with mostly weeds currently. Want to go St. Augustine? What are the proper steps for soil prep and sod installation? Well, I think that's it, Jason. So you prep the soil and then you do the sod installation. Okay, all right. No, no. Boone, take your shot here. Give Jason some tips.
Well, this is how many hours do we have? Um, all
We
right.
don't
So
have
first
any.
one on this is a loaded question, but the first one is for me is going to be seasonality. We get
Mm,
people right now that are calling the office and they're wanting to do some resod work, and I'm recommending first that they hold off through the heat of the summer. I mean,
mm,
we're about to get into the depths of hell here for the next month and a half, and so I would say probably the later half of August, August 15th, that's going to be kind of your green light to do some fall sod work in the lawn, and that's going to help the newly planted sod from going into heat related stress. We want that sod to be healthy and happy
mm,
and to want to live and put on new growth and put on roots. So, first one is maybe wait a while right now, or uh, or spring is really the best time to do it. So once we've got into out of the cool season and past the threat of frost, typically about April 15th, moving forward into spring is the best time of the year for
mm,
us to put down sod. It's the longest moderate temperature time frame that we have on our annual calendar. So that's number one. Second part of that is, I'm with Extension. We always talk about soil sampling and soil analysis. Is let's figure out what we have in the soil by doing a low cost soil test. Our lab up in College Station, we charge $12 for a basic sample that does your six macronutrients and pH, and so that's pretty cheap. There's several other labs out there, and there's some little home tests that you can buy at the garden centers, just to give you kind of a snapshot of what is in the soil and what how you might want to balance the nutrients out a little bit prior to um, cultivating the soil. Um, and Next step is going to be looking at some of that existing vegetation. If we have some weeds there that are perennial weeds like coastal Bermuda grass, nutsedge, Virginia buttonweed, dollarweed, wood sorrel. Those are weeds that we're going to want to get out of there before we put the new sod down because they're going to be the bane of our existence if we don't address those first. So look at the weeds, try to get them out of there. So lots of tools in the shelf for that. The first one would be the use of low impact herbicides to try to just eliminate the existing vegetation. Beyond that, if you don't like using weed killers, would be a good old fashioned garden hoe and going out there and just scraping the surface using a flat tip sharp shovel to just kind of take that layer of weeds, root, and vegetative material off of the site first, and then to cultivate the soil. So find some
Yeah.
way, either by using a mattock or a hoe or a tiller, to lightly loosen up the rooting surface. So when you put the sod there, so if you've seen the turf farms, um, it's just a big flat area, usually hundreds of acres, and they come out with the tractor and they scrape off about a half inch of roots of soil with that sod. And about 95% of that plant's root system is left in the ground in the field, and so this thing is having a really hard time. So when you set it down onto the vegetation, if you haven't loosened that soil up, broken it up so that when those roots start trying to find new soil to tap into, um, you want air, you want moisture, and you want the ability for those roots to be able to penetrate and mine down
Hmm.
into that. If you don't do any work there and you just have this hard pan surface, which is pretty typical for turf areas that have declined,
Yeah.
is that the roots have a really hard time tapping into that hard pan surface layer. So breaking that up is crucial to getting this established. And then get the sod down. Now I've seen a lot of people's homemade versions of laying sod, and it's usually the miserly approach that gets me giggling. Is that they cut up the sod pieces and they space them out and leave. They try to maximize their money by leaving a
Sure.
lot of bare area in between the sod pieces, and that's just not going to work,
Yeah. Well,
because you're going to end up with a whole lot of weeds growing in there, and it's just very hard for the turf to establish in that situation. So bite the bullet, budget the money to go in there when you lay your sod, is lay the pieces
mhm.
side by side throughout the whole grid area, and you're going to have much more success. What I typically recommend further than that, once we get the sod on the ground, is come in with a light layer, maybe a quarter inch of a good finished high quality compost, and spread that evenly across the turf area. Water that in thoroughly, and then after that is making sure that that turf doesn't get bone dry
Right.
in between your watering. So just a light watering, keeping it lightly moist uh, for probably 3 or 4 weeks until that plant can get some roots started
Right. For
and to
sure.
get down into that soil. Once you've done all that, you should be in good shape. Typically, we don't recommend any top fertilization for at least the first growing season that it's in the ground. So we're trying to let it get established, put in some roots, put on some new growth, and then we can start looking at an ongoing fertilization schedule.
Well, nice. You did that in less than an hour, so that was highly impressive.
You splashed me
Jason,
with Gatorade.
Jason should be very grateful that he got such a thorough answer. So we're
That
gonna kind of
well,
cut that out and be like, here's anytime we get a side question, just
that's a
watch
one
this.
piece deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, but
And
you got to cover all that. It's very
nothing to be
every
sorry
every
about, man.
every
Nothing
part
to
of
be
that
sorry
is
about.
crucial.
Absolutely.
All
And
right.
people really take for granted some things. I mean, I've seen lumpy sod because people spaced them too much. They didn't deal with some big kind of crowning grasses they had under stuff. A lot of places where people really kind of cut corners to get it done, but then they're kicking themselves because they didn't do it right. So, and I do
That's
think
right.
that that you mentioned the hard pan ground, and if the sod it's getting worse since Harvey, it's always compaction, and so it's not a quick and easy step. It's not just putting down some new fertilizer or something like that. So, um,
Yep.
but you can do prep now if you're planning on doing a new spring sod. So putting down some compost now, top dressing something like that on your weed area. We get some really beautiful weeds, but you'll also have some soil improvements there. So it's my only minor addition, not even anything else. So great job, man. That was so good, so thorough. We're gonna go on to question number two. Here we go.
Whew, okay.
Question two. I know, right? This is from Nicholas. This one's a shorter answer. So Nicholas says, there are small bumps on the branches of my lemon tree, which is like an adorable way to describe this. Okay, see picture. What is it and how do I treat it? Preferably an organic approach. Thanks. There's the
Oh,
small bumps
there's the
there.
picture. Oh,
Yeah,
okay, I get
yeah,
to see the picture.
yeah.
Oh,
See,
that's a beautiful one. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't think kind of going into this blind, but that's a really nice picture. And a lot of times we don't get good quality pictures when we
Very
get
true.
people calling in. It's fuzzy and from a distance, and there's not really anything, or it's just a dead plant, and they
Yeah.
ask us what's wrong. But this
Yeah.
one's
What's
pretty good.
sure,
Yeah.
sure.
So this is scale insect that's on this branch. If we look at those little whelps along the branch, and scale is kind of a funny insect because the immatures are crawlers and flyers, and so they mate and move around. And then when they move up to adult stage, they create this chitin wax coating, and they basically seal themselves to the plant in this
Mm.
one spot, and they spend the rest of their adult life sitting there, and the lazy boy eating TV dinners.
I knew some guys in the
Watch,
dorm rooms that were kind of like that back in
watching
college.
watching Netflix, you know. So that's kind of the story of these critters.
Right.
And they, if you looked at that up close, it kind of looks like a tortoise shell that maybe just kind of like locked itself onto the branch. And so,
Right. Yeah. Like a dome
um,
of armor protecting
right,
that you've built
yeah,
over
and
yourself.
it's not the end of the world for citrus. What it's typically going to cause is just a little bit of a lack in vigor from the growth that it's impacting, and then the
Right.
lower branches beneath that. So they exude the waste. Basically, their secretion is called honeydew, and on
Which
that
is like
honeydew,
that's got to be the most pleasant name for a secretion. You know what I mean? Like it's like, oh, your
yeah,
secretion. That's a honeydew. That's so pleasant. It's like no,
yeah.
it's poopies. That's
It is poopies, yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, I see the sewage trucks, they're called the honeydew guys or something like
Nice.
that. So
Yeah, there we go.
So it's the same deal, but on that honeydew, on the lower leaves that it falls down onto, you tend to get this smoky black covering,
Right.
and this is sooty mold or sooty mildew,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically just feeding on the sugary waste from the insect. So if that's the case, and even with these, probably step one is just a high powered jet with your water hose nozzle. Let's
Yes.
turn that down high pressure to a fine mist, and try to knock those adults off. I mean, that's
It's
the
so
cheapest and
logical.
easiest way.
It's so logical, right? It's like, where can I get a small droplet pressurized? It's like, there you go. I got it on my little thing that I have on my water hose.
Yeah,
So I love that.
yeah,
And this
yeah.
is a common question that's like, hey, I have a real problem with my citrus. I have sooty mold. And it's like,
Hmm.
okay, well, the sooty mold's not the problem. The scale or the
Yeah,
aphids are the problem. They're not even the problem, right? They're pointing to kind of a less healthy plant that's going through some distress. And
that's
so,
right.
yeah, so okay, you spray off, you get your jet on, you set up your pressure washer, full blast, go out to the citrus tree, you knock them off, and then what do you do? What's your treatment for the tree or for the soil, or what's your next step?
Well, in some situations, if it's a light infestation, that may be it. But if we've got a reoccurring problem and that, they tend to see a reflush of activity, then step two is maybe go to a little bigger gun, looking at some oils, and some soap products. So
Yeah,
insecticidal soap sprays, or wax-based oil, all season oil sprays work
right.
really good on scale, is just trying to get that on the adult scale. Usually they're in these kind of like populations along the stem or underneath the nodes of the leaves.
Mm.
And so just trying to get, good coverage from those products on those populations, and knock them back. And then, like you said, looking at the health of the plant, trying to encourage it to increase vigor and growth through some nutrient management on the plant, and just hope for the best after that.
It is a great approach with scale to knock them off with water like that. At Herman Park, we had crepe myrtle bark scale on our Basham's Party Pink crepe myrtles, and
Yeah.
I was like, let's get out the pressure washer and hose these guys off. And they were like, "What?" And people would walk by and be like, "What are y'all doing to these trees?" And after we explained them, they get it. And then at the end of the day, the guy who was doing most of the spraying was like, "That was the most fun I've ever had at work." It was like a really nice. It was like a really hot day, and we were spraying cool water everywhere. So it worked though. They were without sooty mold and without crepe myrtle bark scale for a little while. So
Yep.
Well, hope that helps with the citrus question. A great answer there. So those adorable bumps that you're describing are in fact small insects that are sucking the vigor and the life from your tree. So wah wah. All right, cool. Next question. Here we go.
Cool.
This is from Daryl. All right, so this one's kind of specific to the show. So Daryl says a couple weeks ago you had a guest that had a home remedy for killing gnats and fruit flies. Can you provide me with that recipe or another solution that you like? So I'm just gonna let you provide a solution you like.
Sure. And I'm assuming we're talking about indoors on this question.
Yeah, I guess.
Indoors.
Yeah, it's. I
Okay.
mean,
So yeah. So for this, I mean, so we've got fungal gnats typically
mm,
inside the house, and then outside we're going to have a range of gnat species, including black fly or biting gnats, which have been hellacious this year for us. But inside the house, if we're talking about fungal gnats, typically, those are breeding in wet soil. So
mm,
if you've got some house plants that have either poor drainage or you're overwatering those plants, you're probably creating an environment for those gnats to reproduce in. So kind of step one, I think, is more of a cultural practice than spraying something. And
mm.
so that would be to either repot those plants in a new potting soil, or start trying to kind of increase the length of time between watering those plants. Look at how you can improve drainage on there, and then try to take away that breeding environment. And I think that you'll see some improvements. Other things to kind of think about, what we do in our house occasionally is I'll cook up some hot water on the stove, usually about once a year, and just go around the house through the drains, the sink, the bathroom sink, shower,
Mm.
drain, and just pour some hot water down there, in case we have any breeding zones down in the piping there, or just habitat for the adults to hang out at.
No, that's
Um,
great.
and then a little trap technique. Um, I don't know of anybody that really likes wasting their red wine, but you can use wine or like a apple cider vinegar. We take a little cup and put some cellophane over the top with a hole, and
Yeah,
just mix up a little soap and some apple cider vinegar overnight. And if there's any gnats in the kitchen or in the house, then they really really want to get in there, and they
I
fall into
think
the water and die. So it works pretty good.
I think that might have been the solution was a trap of wine and apple cider vinegar together. Might have been what it was. So I have one of those electric kettles, that you make whatever French press coffee or tea sometimes with, and that might be great for just bubbling up the water in there, and then if people aren't into advanced cooking like you're talking about, but pouring that out into the drains once a year, I think that's a really great kind of clue or tip for getting rid of some of these gnats. So yeah,
Yeah,
those
gnats
biting
and
gnats outside are terrible. They were driving me bonkers earlier in the year.
yeah, they've been, and I'm allergic to them, and many people are, and so it
Oh
makes us
gosh.
whelp up really silly. Sometimes I get a good. I had two of them bit me on my lip the other day
Oh.
when I was doing some tractor work, and my wife got the biggest kick out of it because I just, I look like I had a bowling ball stuck in my
Oh my
mouth.
goodness.
So
Which
she
is
got some.
hard. Just hard to do. Bowling
Yeah,
ball, man, that's a big.
it's, it's not fun. It's not
No,
fun.
no, it
So
doesn't sound
so
fun. I'm
hopefully it'll
glad.
dry out. Once it dries out, they're cyclical during these wet patterns when we have a lot of water moving through the ditches, and so once that trend kind of moves away, then those populations diminish pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I've in our backyard they're kind of ebbing and flowing, and we're really those Cuban anoles that were everywhere for a while.
Mm,
I haven't
yeah,
seen them. I have not seen them since the freeze. I think I've seen one, a really huge one that was in my garage. But yeah, I haven't. They were like really eating a lot of the gnats and flies and stuff outside the house, and not
not so
seen as
much.
many. Not seen as many. So
Well, there you go. They're exotic animals. That's what I guess. Let Mother Nature do the trick on them.
yeah, yeah, that's right. We got them. All right, here we go. Question number 4. Doing a great job, by the way, Boone. Really thorough.
Whew.
All right, this is from Grady. Grady starts with another exclamation, but a positive one. So I actually chose this one because last time we were on, we talked a little bit about olives. But Grady says, I love olives. Are there any olive trees that make fruit that I can reasonably turn into food? That seems like a weird question, but it's actually really, really phrased well. Google has not been helpful. So, not, I guess he's like, doesn't know how to brine or dry brine or whatever. And so, any olives, is olive selection a thing when it comes to actually making edible olives?
Uh, it's not. Is he not just tattling on Google here? Maybe.
It sounds like that
Um,
he probably works for Bing or something, right? And he's
just
like,
throwing
yeah,
Google under the bus.
exactly.
Well, if that's not it, and we're actually looking at olives, um, I'm gonna tell you to walk away.
Nice.
And I say that because we I have been part of a replicated research project on olives. Uh, our agency statewide has had 12 replicated research study sites. So here in
Wow.
Fulshire, I've hosted a plot for the last 8 years.
Mm,
Of that 8 years, we've had three hard freezes. We had 18 degrees, 16, and then 8 degrees.
mm,
I think was probably our low for Uri.
mm.
And so that was three times that the plants went all the way back to the ground. All
Right.
19 varieties. We're doing 19 cultivars from across the world and looking at which ones would perform best for us in Texas for a commercial crop. And so they all go to the ground. There's not
Mm.
one that's not going to do that when we
Okay.
get 8 or 10 degrees. So in saying that, uh, I've the jury's out on olives for us is that with our pattern, 99% of the time, olive is a fantastic shrub, small tree, a fruit producing plant for our region, but it's
Right.
that 1% of freezing weather that we just can't hide from. And it's unless you can put the plant in a large container and then you have the ability to wheel that into the garage during freeze, or if you want to go through
Oh,
all the work like people did with citrus and try to, build structures over these plants, very difficult. Now that's
right.
just my own personal disclaimer from the research that we've done, but we do have some gleanings that actually are kind of interesting.
Oh,
Is
here we
that
go.
of those 19 varieties, there were three that really stood out as our specialists went across the state and took notes from every plot. And one of them was a rating on whether or not we had mortality in a species in these plots. And so the three that performed well for um, lack of mortality, they lived through the freeze. They didn't die completely. And then subsequently, these three were also at the top of the list as far as new regrowth. So they froze down to the ground, but they were the fastest out of all the varieties to spurt back up and kind of grow a new canopy back. And so the one that you've probably heard of those three is Arbequina,
Okay.
and that's been kind of the one. If you go to nurseries, you see a lot of Arbequina. Um, Probably 90% of the commercial production of olives in the state of Texas is Arbequina,
Okay.
and it's proven itself to be pretty cold hardy. But we've got two other varieties in the trial that actually did better than Arbequina. One is called Picual, and the other one is called Aglando. It's spelled a little funny. It's Aglandua, but it's pronounced Aglando. And if you can find that Aglando or Picual, it's a beautiful plant, very vigorous, produces a good crossover uh, plant. So you can brine these, you can oil them down, so it can be a
Mm.
table olive or it can be an oil olive, depending on what you want to do with it. Uh, for I wouldn't grow it any of these three. It's definitely something to try.
Yeah.
particularly in the Houston area. If you've got a little microclimate, if you got like that brick behind you on the south side of your house that's maybe held a little bit of afternoon sun heat during the
Right.
winter, you might find a special spot for those three
Yeah. South
where
side
it
against the brick wall, getting the warmth.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure. So it's not, maybe it's not going to freeze all the way back. You know, the study that we're doing is
Hmm.
a commercial planting, so they're out in the field, out on their own,
Right.
in the element, and so we we've had about 30% mortality
Mm.
from the winter storm Uri in that field, but every
Wow.
plant went down to the ground, and we were having to cut it back and let it resprout from the base again. So if you can handle doing that, then give it a shot. But
Yeah.
as far as expectations for volumes of olives, that's still a question mark for us.
So the Pequal and the Aglandu the same size as the Arbequina? Are they smallish or are they a little bit bigger?
The Pequal is actually a pretty good sized plant. It's a little larger in
Oh, awesome.
stature. It was the biggest one that we had in our trial plots. At
Oh.
the highest point that we got, the longest growth period, they're up about 12, 14 feet.
And that's
And that's
before.
natural height. We didn't do any
Yeah.
pruning to that. So for somebody who has a small backyard mixed orchard, might end up being a good plant because it's not huge. They stay
Right.
pretty small on their own, so you don't really have to do uh, much pruning on them. My advice is to train them like a large shrub,
Right. Yes, that's it.
multi-trunk large shrub, instead of pruning them up like a small tree. I don't tend to recommend doing that.
Yeah, a lot of people are using the Arbequina as a landscape plant, which is really kind of ironic because it's such a producer. So you get a little bit of mess that you don't really want because you don't care about the fruit. So I
Yes.
planted about 10 years ago a really cute little grove of Arbequina, and none of them died in the freeze, and they're all doing really great. The guy has really unsuccessfully, it's not the guy who just asked that question, but it really unsuccessfully has not been able to turn them into food. I guess there's some techniques that he's not following. He tried dry brining, which he read about on the internet, and he just needs to try oiling them. I think is the way to go there.
Yeah, and the other thing that most people don't think about is olive tea is a old world tea. It's high in antioxidants.
Okay,
I found that it takes quite a bit of honey or sugar added to it and lemon to give it a good quality taste. If you
sure.
don't do that, it's kind of bitter and boring. But as far as a hot health drink,
Mm,
it's something that's gaining popularity. So if you don't end up getting fruit, you take a handful of the leaves, put
wow.
them on the kitchen counter for a couple days, let them dry off, and then crush those and steep them in some hot water and make a nice tea out of them.
Well, there you go. Put them in a tea garden. That's perfect. Awesome, Boone. Well, that's great information there, and I'm happy to hear about these two other varieties that crushed it in these trials. Relatively, weren't crushed, I guess.
Relatively.
Weren't crushed by the trials. So that's such cool research you guys are doing, and I always love hearing the adventures of it, and it's so cool. We're all about people taking botanic journeys and knowing what they're growing and all that stuff, and we always like to bring in a couple different folks, and so we're gonna go to a video here with Sherry. Got a question that somebody asked about summer annuals, so we'll bop over to that real quick.
Gary has a question about vinca. The heat is on in Houston, and there's no better way to get color in your yard than planting beautiful vinca. Now, vinca has two different growth habits. There's this cascade trailing variety, as you can see. It's cascading over the side of the pot. Wonderful for hanging baskets, pots, or ground cover. And then they're upright vinca, the ones that go about 18 to 24 inches tall. These love it hot, they love it dry. However, the first 2 weeks, you gotta watch your water on them. They'll get you all the way through summer and until we have a frost, basically. Just keep them fed and they'll keep you happy all summer.
Little quick vinca breakdown there. Nice, Sherry. Way to go. Boone, great job as always. Really digging deep into some of the science of this stuff. I think a lot of people just dance around a few facts that they've got, and so I really appreciate your perspective and your ability to bring it. So, way to go. So
Thank
remind
you.
us, yeah, of course. Remind us this program. I really want people to sign up and take it. The organic learning about organic sort of workshop thing you've got.
Yeah,
What's it
so
called?
that's the big thing that's coming up. So it's the Fort Bend Regional Vegetable Conference summer session, Thursday, July 29th, and you can go to fortbend.agrilife.org and look on our event calendar and click on the registration link for more information on that. And one thing I mentioned the last time I was on, we're continuing two other series here. One is called Grow Your Own, and this is a 6-class
Awesome.
series on home food production. So we're halfway through that series, but we've got room for anybody. We're doing that virtual. So if you want to learn about those the last three topics are fall vegetable gardening and fruit tree production and composting are the three classes we have left in that series. You can go again to our website, fortbend.agrilife.org, for more information on that. And then also we're doing a ongoing series with Fort Bend Libraries that's called Landscape Success. And
Hmm.
this is designed for the weekend warriors. So it's turf grass, trees, shrubs, ground covers, etc. And we've got those spaced out monthly throughout the year. So if you just Google Fort, Fort Bend Libraries and go to their event calendar and click, you'll see those every month. I think it's the third Tuesday of every month, about 3:30 in the afternoon. Those programs are free.
It's great you haven't given up on Google yet. That's really big of you to
Yeah,
stick with
you
even
caught
after the
that.
bad reviews that it's been getting here. Well, that is awesome. You guys are doing awesome work. And if you don't know, AgriLife is also kind of the birthplace of the Master Gardeners. So those of you that, are Master Gardeners or love that program, it's a great way to get involved doing good work. So, Boone,
Yeah,
thank
well,
you.
and plug for that real quick. We start our
Yeah.
fall class for new training and master gardeners here in Fort Bend County in October.
Okay.
So contact our office if you're interested in that. Every county around the Houston area has their own county master gardener program. So just
Right.
visit whatever county you're in, visit their extension website to get a hold of their master gardener coordinator, figure out when their trainings are.
Absolutely. So you guys are offering so many things and really making a better world. People being related and close to their food, close to their landscapes, to me is like a great way for people to center and calm down a little bit in this wacky world we live in. So Boone, great job. Ladies and
Thank
gentlemen,
you,
Boone
Dany.
Holladay. I'm Dany Milliken. This is Home Show Garden Pros. We'll see you this Saturday, or I guess you'll hear me this Saturday at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. But hit us up with your gardening questions. We love that stuff. So just tune on in. Sports Radio 610, Saturday morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. All right. See you soon. Get out there and garden.